Yes, we're live. Good evening, everyone. We are Ladies UX here from Dublin, and we are kicking off our product management for UX designers meetup today. We will wait for 5 minutes to get more people into the chat room, and then we will kick off with Christy Chan, a product manager here based in Dublin. I should put some music in the background. Good evening, everyone. We are going to kick off our first meetup on product management for UX designers. First, thanks so much for joining us. And well, once again, we're going to give a brief intro about ourselves. We're Ladies UX Dublin, and we have been active in the community in Dublin for the last 3 years. And we are a welcoming and collaborative community of women promoting women and user experience. Globally, we're operating in more than 50 cities, and Dublin is one of the most active chapters of Ladies UX nowadays. Our team is made of 3 wonderful women, including Luana, me, and Tamina and Inis. And our speaker is a product manager called Christy Chan. Christy, would you give us a brief intro about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's Wednesday, so hopefully there's only half of the week left, and it's bank holiday for most of us. I'm currently in Dublin city centre. I've been a product manager for nearly 3.5 years now, and I'm very excited to be here. And I'm kind of maybe, reveal more about myself when I get to my presentation.
Christy?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Would you like us to, because I couldn't hear you for a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Maybe it's my internet. We always have this issue here, remote working. So I first started my journey in e-commerce. So I came from an e-commerce startup, which really gave me the foundations to becoming a product manager. And now I work with an AI-based company. They're predominantly based in Tokyo, but they've recently, in the last couple of months, they're massively increasing their presence around the world. So yeah.
Great stuff. Christy will give us a brief, not briefer, actually really good presentation on product management now. And I will stop my screen so you can share yours.
Sure. In the meantime, what I might do is that I might just disable my video while I'm sharing my screen. So just bear with me 1 second, okay? So I'm going to start sharing my screen now. So, okay, can you see the slides?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Sorry, it's so weird because, the way that we kind of communicate and collaborate is so different now because it's just all through the computer screen. So it's a little bit unnerving. So I'll just kick things off with this. So kind of expanding on who I am and what do I do. So as I did mention before, I am a product manager. And to kind of add on to my existing knowledge, I'm actually currently pursuing a postgrad diploma in product management with TU Dublin. If anyone is interested in, kicking off their careers in product management, I do recommend checking them out. You can find them on Software SkillNet. So that's where I kind of got all my information on. So before starting my product management career, I had zero technical background. I did my bachelor's in business, and previously, before that, I did a diploma in marketing. So I love reading historical fiction. It's a very niche, I would say, genre of books. And to be honest, I'm at this point of the lockdown where I'm owning too many pawns in the apartment that my partner keeps giving out to me about buying more of them. So that is summer, and that is the view outside of my apartment. So I consider her one of my plants as well, because we got her a little jumper in pennies. So before I kind of continue on with this, a lot of people tend to ask, what does a product manager do? What, even self-reflecting it onto yourself, what do you know about product management? Chances are not a lot. And that's totally okay, because truth to be told, product management has been around only quite recently. And sometimes even a product manager doesn't even know that they're doing product management. It's a little bit of an inside joke within the product management community that we're still figuring out what are the best methods or what are the best tips and tricks that a product manager should know of. Okay, so so my journey in product management was literally, stumbling through a forest. I didn't set out to become a product manager. I didn't even thought that, a person like myself could be a product manager. So as I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, I started my career in an e-commerce startup where I was very much leading the customer support side of things. So I would be the person, fulfilling the orders, putting through the refund requests, and the managing the returns and things like that. And about a year into my career, the company decided to change its track, and in the tech world, what we call as pivot. The company decided to pivot into no longer selling physical products, but selling technological products as well. So the company decided to invest, in engineers, in designers, and things like that. And slowly by slowly, I kind of moved away from managing the physical products, and I started managing the kind of software products itself. At that point, because I was doing so many things at once, I thought that I was a project manager, not to be confused with a product manager. I thought what I was doing was project management, because everything was very different, was very varied, and it definitely tested every single part of my brain. So I did a course in project management, and unfortunately, it has kind of reflecting back, I would say that project management is not what I thought it would be. Project management is traditionally more appealing to those in construction, architecture, role works, and things like that, and manufacturing, of course. So I kind of, completing my course, completing everything, I kind of went back online and I stumbled into a woman in product management group, very, very much similar to Ladies at UX. They're an international organization that's very active on Facebook. So I joined in and I started to realize that maybe I'm a product manager, not so much a project manager. So that's essentially my journey to product management. Would I recommend it? Maybe, maybe not. It took nearly the first 2 to 3 years of my career to really find out who I am and how do I add value to an organization. So, kind of to summarize my big spiel about my background and my history in product management. What does a product manager do? Most of the time, it's an extremely cross-functional role. A little kind of summary that I made up myself is that product managers are the jack of all trades, and they're also master of some of them. And the reason for that is because the product manager sits between the engineering team, which is highly technical, and the business team, who at the end of the day are the ones that are bringing in value and essentially supporting the entire infrastructure of the business. Not only do we act as kind of the middle person between these two sometimes very opposing teams, we help in envisioning and bringing new features and products to life. And not just bringing them in, kind of feeding to my next point, we also manage a product's lifecycle. We're essentially the parents of the product. We start from seeing the conception. Okay, this is a bit not suitable for work, but essentially we conceptualize the idea usually from the upper management, and then we push it through to the point where it is ready to be sold. And when it matures, we maintain them. And for example, if the product turns into a legacy product and it serves no value to the business anymore, we then I would say manage how do we phase those products out. So on top of all of these, managing all of these different things, we also explore what are the competitions out there and carry out market research to really understand what is the product, how does the product solve a problem, and how can we bring value, not just to the clients, but to us internally as well. So as I kind of, I've kind of gone through all of these points, the last and most important thing I would say a product manager is that they're the internal champions for existing and potential clients. The product manager essentially speaks, in most cases, speaks to clients, find out exactly what is their need, understand those needs, and bring them internally to the product or the product team itself and champion for those clients. Because most of the times, companies fall into a trap of building products without knowing, does it bring value to them? So I kind of touched on projects versus products earlier on. So a main differentiator between projects is that it serves to provide a solution for a problem rather than creating customer value. And that's where kind of the products or the product manager comes in. Where all we do is we chase the value, So that's kind of my take on what a product manager is. And I'll move on to how do product managers think. So this would potentially help you in understanding what makes a product manager tick. Why do they think like that? Why or how can I better communicate with product managers in, articulating my thoughts and articulating why a design of a certain, let's say, element is that way. So product managers are very solution-oriented because most of the time they are firefighting a million of problems. It could be a tech problem, it could be a business problem, it could be a marketing problem, it could even be a design problem, So they're kind of the guardians of all the solutions. So we're very solution-oriented. When we see a problem, we don't necessarily see the problem. We just try to think of, hey, what can we do to fix it? And that is, I would say, mainly because we run on what we call a manager schedule. So Paul Graham, so I did throw up the link there, fantastic article that differentiates between a maker's schedule and a manager's schedule. So what is a manager's schedule? A manager's schedule, technically speaking, in my opinion, are broken down into shorter periods of time compared to a maker's schedule. A maker's schedule, for example, when you're designing, let's say, a website, you tend to divide it up between, let's say 3 to 4 hours for a certain page, rather than breaking your work down on an hour-by-hour basis. Because product managers are so, their reach is so vast within the product team, their days tend to look like 1 hour slots for different meetings, for different calls, and to ensure that we're talking to everybody and ensuring that we get all of the information that we can to make the best solution. So that kind of leads into my third point. Product managers are the people's people. We constantly talk to people, and the reason for that is because we are not drivers of the decision-making process. What we do is that we can inspire other people to not just provide a valuable solution, but to spark conversations and ensure that the entire team is moving in the same direction as the company's vision, as the company's strategy. talking to people usually takes up more than 60% of my day. I usually have back-to-back meetings, so it's completely normal for a product manager to divide up their days based on how many meetings do they have. It definitely poses a new set of challenges because sometimes we have to do things like market research, which then we can't really break it down to, an hour or 45 minutes. We would need a little bit more time. So actually, a really good tip that I kind of learned, a trick that I learned was to essentially try to block out my mornings for meetings, for calls, for other people. And then afterwards, in my afternoon post-lunch, I'll tend to kind of block it out and make sure that I'm able to do things like market research, things like wireframing, so on and so forth. So some product managers that you meet, they can be very technical. They can come from an engineering background, they can come from an architect's background, and things like that. Some of them, such as myself, are very much business-oriented. So business-oriented PMs tend to be more focusing on, the clients, making sure they're happy, making sure that whatever that we do ties in with the revenue. The technical PMs, they tend to come more from a solutions architect background. They tend to look at how can we create a product, how can we ensure the product is stable, so on and so forth. So I think for the past couple of minutes, you've heard me say creating value, creating value, creating value. And that is very true because our work is a testimony of how we are all constantly looking for the best value possible at the lowest possible cost. And some of you may know the term creating MVPs, a minimal viable product. Some people would even say, hey, we can't just work with minimal viable products. We need to make them lovable as well. So these are two contrasting themes that most product managers would be quite well versed in. Because time is of the essence and is the most important resource that anyone can have, we're always looking to provide the best and the most value at the lowest possible cost. And usually that cost would be for time. So if you ever have a product manager come to you and say that, you're overthinking this, you're over designing this, take a step back. I know it can be frustrated. Take a step back and kind of think, what exactly does the product manager want? Why are they simplifying the design that I've poured my heart and soul into? Because sometimes, being minimal goes a really long way. So, not on top of all of these things about how a product manager thinks and how do they essentially work, the last and probably the most important element is that I would say probably about 95% of the time, the product manager's main job is to prioritize items. Sometimes that means, giving up option A to go with option B and things like that. And the prioritization does come with a little bit of sacrifice. So that's why we have to be very ruthless in the decision-making process, because if not, we then are at the danger of overloading ourselves and potentially missing out on offering the most valuable solution to our clients. Okay, so these are all just based on my personal opinions. If you speak to different product managers, they would definitely have different opinions as well. Moving on to the next item, I would like to kind of talk about the key values of product management, which potentially would be able to help you for the next time that you're designing something or even coming up with a concept of a design. So one of the key things in product management that we always use is every time there's a request or every time there's a requirement, we tie it to a user story. So a user story is essentially a made up role just to understand and to simplify exactly what does the user want. So for example, as a designer in the product team, I want to attend this event so that I can then understand more about product management and learn how to talk to product managers. So if you tie that kind of user story to everything you do, that would make it more easy and give more clarity to exactly what we're trying to build. Not only that, kind of evaluate, what are the business, the technological, and the revenue goals. These are the key things that ensure that in the long term, there is sustainability within the company itself and ensuring that we are able to continuously invest in the product and making it better. Another thing that is so crucial to product management itself is the stakeholder management. Some people might argue that product managers are the CEO of the product. I personally disagree with that because we cannot build a product without the help of the other team members. We cannot build a product without the UX team. We cannot build the product without, our architect team, and so on and so forth. It's so important to not just manage those stakeholders, but to build meaningful relationships with them, because in any situation or in any teams that I've been on, I always find that if you build that meaningful relationship with, one of the stakeholders or within a different team, they're able to champion your cause, they're able to champion your ideas, and they're able to help you in bringing your vision to life. So definitely, stakeholder management is a very, very important key. If I could put a million fires on it to show how important it is, I would have done so. So delivering on time. So this kind of comes back to the cost factor, the resource factor. Some product managers, depending, I would say, on the industry you're working in, and depending on the product you're working in, product managers are tasked with potentially delivering products that, are essentially just proof of concepts. This means that no one has even taken a look at the product. They don't even know if they like it. So because of that, we always aim to deliver everything on time as quickly as possible so that we can reiterate and we can follow the agile methodology of essentially deploying fixes, deploying improvements, and better iterations on the product. There's always a fallback that if we do not deliver on time, it then affects the entire change of the delivery process. Self-explanatory, which is the identifying the trade-offs that I did cover in my last slide. Because what we do is so important in defining the product, defining how a user would use a product before even, before someone coming to us and say like, hey, do we go for option A and option B? Product managers tend to already identify those trade-offs and already know which decision would be the best. A lot of times it is the hardest part, I would say, of product management, because we all understand that, whatever decision that we make, we always have to try and make the best one. And sometimes we don't know if it's the best one until that's been done and that's been proven, by revenue, by sales, and things like that. Another thing, and the last thing I would say for product managers, it is so crucial to be able to articulate the why, what, how, and when, especially with facts, with data-driven evidence. This is because when you're working as a product manager, again, coming from my own experience, is that there are a lot of decisions that you need to be making on a day-to-day basis. You have to think about, should I make the button green? Or should I, add in an extra page on the website? Or should I write about this blog article, for example? And sometimes we make those decisions. We can't just make those decisions on the fly, on the whim, just because we want to. Because what we do affects the product so much that it could result in the way a user journey changes. So if we're able to back those reasoning with, facts, with figures, with evidence, we can then ensure that whatever input that we have on the product itself is the best at that point of time. So yeah, so I hope, this summarizing all the key values of product management is useful. And I'm going to share a little bit of, my personal favorite tools that I use and what are the things that could potentially help you
Hello? Hello, Christy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just and went off a little bit at the end when it said help you. It's just.
So essentially, the tools will help you management or your project management skills. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I cannot
trial
hear
and
you.
tested. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now, but when you just opened this new screen, we couldn't hear you.
Okay, but as long as you can hear me now, that's fine, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I just basically would like to share with everyone, what are some of the tools that we use on a day-to-day basis that could potentially help you in articulating your decision-making process, in helping you craft some of the ways you manage your own projects, whether if it's personal, for work, or even for a project itself. So one of the first things that a product manager loves, like we're like completely obsessed with, is ensuring that we track what are the jobs that need to be done. So things like Trello and Jira are our fan favorites. There are other project management, but I have them on the slides here. Essentially, with Trello, that's the free version. It's the easiest way of listing down all your to-dos. When they're done, putting them into a done column. So if you take a look at the screen here, right? So it has, I know it's a bit tiny, but essentially the first swim lane here is to do. And then here is to research, in progress, review, and completed. So on a very, very simple Kanban board. So what a Kanban board is that whenever you have a job to be done, you take it and you move it across the different boards or columns that you have. And if you, for example, let's say you would like to build the landing page, And when you're in the middle of building the landing page, you put it to in progress, and when it's completed, you move it to completed. That is basically adopting the agile methodology into your life. It's very, very simple, but it works really well, especially when we're working on a time constraint, especially when we're trying to make sure that we capture all of the jobs to be done and ensuring that there is progress in all these jobs to be done. So with COVID-19 and all of that, it has been quite a struggle to remotely articulate ideas or share virtually, because you're not in there in person. All you're doing is looking at the screen. You can't really read someone's body language. You don't even know virtual whiteboard, very helpful. I think with Miro, it's a paid plan, but you can get like 3 boards free until they lock your previously created Miro. Even if, let's say, it's just to scribble, to share ideas, and so on and so forth. We love value at the lowest possible cost. Google Jamboard would be very similar to Miro. If you open up, I don't know if anyone has been using it, but Google has a couple of really good task tracking tools, like Google Keep, which essentially is a virtual notepad, kind of like sticky notes, that's shared on cloud, essentially. And you can actually open up a Google Jamboard or a whiteboard within the Google Keep note itself. So that's really, really handy. I do recommend for you to go and check it out. Kind of jumping back to the last point with the task tracking, another tool that could be useful is the task board. So it's TASKBOARD. By Google as well. It's one of their very newest release, where it's basically a very similar to the to-do list that you see here. The only to be done. So documentation. Google Docs is definitely the reigning supreme of all documentation. It's easy to use. It's collaborative, not just collaborative in a sense where we provide suggestions, comments, and things like that. So this kind of maybe is a little bit more in the realm of ladies at UX, with concepts of products or products which people don't really know what they look like. It's actually part of the product manager to wireframe it, to prototype it, so that it gives a better idea of how the use this year is balsamic. I found that really, really helpful in articulating, again, to the design team. We like to see designs. We like to see.
Hi, Christy. Can you hear me?
We love.
Christy, your voice is breaking up a lot. Can you go back into the wireframing tools for us, please?
Yeah, sure. So, okay, so I will just start again on the balsamic tools. So balsamic is a tool that I personally learned how to use at the start of this year. I find it really, really helpful in doing the very initial sketch of the application before sending it on to the design team. And it helps me with articulating exactly what am I looking for in a application, in a new idea. Especially, it's not the best design, definitely, but it does help designers understand how big do we want the button, or where do we want the upload button, or do we want a drag and drop to upload feature, things like that. It's definitely very helpful if we can provide as much visuals as possible. And this is something that I'm also trying my best to do every day, is that whenever I am presenting something, or whenever I am speaking to the team on as possible, because are easily identified and understood much faster. Kind of feeding into the whole visualizing aspect and ensuring that people understand what we're talking about. I find screen recordings extremely helpful, especially when you're working where clients come up to me and they say, Christy, we have a problem. What happened? How did this problem happen? What are the files you use? A client is able to record the screen recording and to show you exactly what they did. They do in back and forth with each other. Really helps. And our bug, I can use those screen recordings to show to the dev teams, the QA teams, that, hey, this is what I've done. Take a look at my screen recording and you understand what happens. I find that it saves a ton of time, rather than me, writing up every single step that I did in order to arrive to that issue. So do check out there, and you can share those videos using a URL. It's really so. Yeah, so that's basically my summary of what product management is. And before I kind of close everything and give the stage back to Lana, I just want to show you a little kind of comic that I personally love. Is that there's a question of, what does a product manager do? And the thing is that not everyone knows, and that's okay, because product managers are definitely gaining traction in Ireland and in globally as well. And about product managers, and hopefully you can understand them a little bit more. So if anyone's interested in contacting me, most of the time we look a lot like this, just being sad and looking at our coffee. So yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing now. Thanks a million.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you. If you could only show the last screen with your contact again, because it cut off, so people can see if anyone want to contact you again. Can you just share that screen again?
Sure, of course. I'm so
please. I think.
Sorry about. I'm really sorry about that. It's been acting up recently. I'm using Virgin Media. If anyone wants to, send them a message on my behalf, please do feel free to do so.
Thank you so much. It was really, really good.
No.
I've been working with product managers for a good time, and it's so important for the designer to get along with product managers. It's like from the roadmap from everything, for understanding the roadmap and the deadlines and the resources. And yes, it was very insightful, and I really like that you went through all the tools as well. So thank you. We have a few
No problem.
questions. I think Ines.
Yeah, can I ask a question since we're in this topic? So the relationship between designer and product manager. So do you see, how do you see this relationship between the product designer and the PM? Do you think there's like an optimal or ideal way of collaborating between these two roles?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And I would say that although the product manager kind of sits in the middle management role, typically in an organization, I think that ideally the designers are they should act as one of the many stakeholders of the product management team itself. Because, as much as some teams they would prefer to have the product management managing the design team, I always think it's a two-way system. And design has become so increasingly important to our day-to-day that whatever that the designers have should feed into the product management and potentially influence the outcome of the decision-making process. So for example, definitely don't be afraid to share your thoughts with your product managers. If you can kind of back up those opinions and thoughts with your reasons, that would help your product managers in, championing essentially your ideas to the wider organization as well.
Thank you. So we have another question from Mariana on YouTube. Hi, Christy. What kind of soft skills do you think a product manager should have?
So I think this is the $1 million question, really. I would say that the top ones are having, I would say, emotional intelligence. And the reason for that is because you're working with people of different backgrounds, with different opinions, with different motivation. So if you're able to react accordingly to those different stakeholders and communicate in a way that, would be the easiest for everybody to understand and to move them to the right direction, that would definitely be the first one. The second one I would say is to have empathy, not just having empathy in the sense where to your teammates, but having empathy to your users as well. The product or the application, for example, they're always designed without consulting the users, for example. And because of that, it's so crucial to take a step back as a product manager and kind of think, as a user, does this make sense? And I think, that is very much heavily influenced by UX designer as well. If and when you're planning something, you're designing something, kind of take yourself away from the problem, because when you're too close, you get very emotional, you get very frustrated because you can only see the short term. If you're able to visualize, a bigger picture, then that would help in crafting your story, crafting why, and articulating those decisions in the decision-making process. So that, and the third one is prioritization. It's very hard because I don't think that there is a perfect way of prioritizing something. There's only the best way possible at that stage. If you're able to prioritize, the features, if you're able to needs to be done over what a very successful product manager. I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you. So the next question is actually about prioritization. So sorry to go back to this, but yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you prioritize, especially so when it comes to resources, so people in the team and budget and things like this?
Mm-hmm. So the first thing I always tend to look at is what are the things that absolutely needs to be done. It's really hard because, again, if you're very emotionally attached to an idea or a design itself, it's very hard to prioritize, right? In a day, there's a million things that you need to do. There is 10,000 calls that you have to make and be on. But out of those items, you have to really choose what are, for example, your top must-do items, kind of maybe list them down to maybe 5 or 6 of them. And then, out of those 5 or 6, you kind of eliminate it by process. I would say prioritization does come with time. It's not something that you can perfect immediately. It's true, habits of attempting to make the right decision at the best time possible. So yeah, I'm really sorry I don't have a definite answer for that, but practice, and you do well.
No problem, thank you. So I think our last question is from Roberta on YouTube. So hi, Christy, how does a product manager share and send their prototypes to developers?
Hi. So usually what we would do is that if, let's say, we have a task tracking app that we're using, for example, Jira or Trello, we try to attach those prototypes or those ideas of a design to those tickets to ensure that we don't lose track of things. Personally, I like to screen record with tools like Balsamiq. There's an option for you to kind of present it and kind of show it, like, how would you to use Loom. I'm obsessed with using Loom. And then I would, for example, export it the designer can work best with. So sometimes it could be a JSON file. Sometimes it could be a PDF. Sometimes it could just be a number of images. So it really depends on how your organization or company is structured, or what are the best methods that will reduce the kind of back and forth between the two members. Okay,
Great.
so I switch back to Luana. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Anis. Thank you, Christy. So thanks so much. We have come to an end, and we're closing the event. We had like a really wonderful talk about product management. Really thanks. So insightful, and it's a cross-functional role and so important. And um, in tech, I think, yeah, product managers, product owners, and it's I don't know what I would do without it. So thanks so much, Christy, for your
No,
time. And hopefully one day we're gonna have you live, like in a venue, giving the same talk for our audience, because I think it was so good. And we also running a giveaway during the week. We're gonna give 2 sketch license, and the giveaway will be on Twitter. So watch our space, especially on our Twitter, and we will be running the competition there. Also, I want to say thanks for Sketch for being our corporate sponsor. And I couldn't say thanks for Christy. I have really thanks, and thanks. And for our audience and our ladies the UX, they are like important part of why we exist. And for now, we are coming into a lockdown, and I hope you all take care of yourselves. And I hope to see you soon and watch our space on Twitter and for the giveaway. And thanks so much for being here. Ines,
problem.
Tamina,
Yeah, thanks a million.
Thanks a million. It was brilliant. Thank you so much, Christy.
No problem. It's very enjoyable to be here as well. And definitely, product managers are important. UX designers are equally important, I would say.
we are all a cross functional team, so we have to work really tight together. So thanks so much, and well, I can't say happy lockdown, but yeah, maybe. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, guys.
Tuning in.
Bye.
Bye bye.